Hello, I wanted to start by explaining the purpose of this interview. I want to gain an understanding of how your career plays into the study of communication in regards to community and your audience specifically. Let's start with your name and your title here.
My name is Kristi Rothrock, and I'm an on-air personality for B99.7 The Buzz, and I'm also the promotions director for all three stations here at Mid-Continental Broadcasting.
How did you find your calling in radio?
I don't want to say that it was an accident, but it almost felt that way because whenever I was younger, I used to make these really corny little radio shows with a little USB mic, and they're terrible. I'm glad they don't exist anymore, but I was always interested in radio. I loved listening to the radio on the way to school, and I loved recording my own radio shows and putting music in them and everything. And then once I got into college, radio always felt like this thing that, oh, well, I'm never going to get into that. I'll never be that lucky. I started studying theater, and then I also broke into communications, and from that ended up with a broadcasting emphasis. And I started working in the college station because that's somewhere my sister really enjoyed working there. And I loved it. I loved being on the radio. I loved getting to talk on the radio. I loved all the geeky technical sides of it. And I thought, wait a minute, this is something that I can actually do.
How do you keep your audience's attention and keep them from switching stations?
That's something that we have to think about constantly here at the radio station because obviously more audience means that your station has higher value, and it means that you are going to reach more people, and therefore advertisers are going to spend more money on you. So we always try to keep everything fresh here on the radio station. That includes topical information, local information, because localization is extremely important in radio. Mm-hmm. You always want to make them feel like you're one of them, because obviously I am, but if I only talk about national news, then I'm not going to come off as a local. So they want to hear people who are from the same town, who know all the little weird intricacies of the town, how the entire town is cut off by one train, and they want to hear that stuff. They want to hear that you know what you're talking about within the town. So keeping them in the loop with information that they don't have to go hunt for online, making it accessible to them just by listening. Also telling funny stories, knowing what is good for a radio story. I mean, it's a state of mind. It's being able to find humor and a good story in the mundane.
I like your approach of being a well-rounded, well-balanced radio host that, likes to keep it interesting, but also knows how to slow it down to where, somebody can just listen to it on their way to work, without being too stressed out. Would you agree that keeping a connection with them helps? And by them, I mean the audience.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because whenever you're doing radio, it is a one-on-one conversation, because you're not talking to a group. You are talking to the singular person driving in their car to work. Mm-hmm. Because whenever you speak to them as a one-on-one conversation, it makes them connect more with you. It makes them feel like they're your friend.
So what methods do you use as being in charge of promotions and your radio host to keep your audience growing, to keep, the station growing?
I'm always on the lookout for things that people would like, and trends as far as what people like. For instance, people that are your age and my age, Joey, it's 22, 21 to 30-ish. Mm-hmm. You have to think about what they want. And what I personally want, I have a car, I have an apartment, yeah. I don't have a need for a boat, I don't have a need for more stuff. But if somebody gave me a trip or an experience, something that I can remember for a lifetime, that's much more valuable to me. So right now the trend for younger audiences is to sell the experience rather than the stuff.
If there was one thing at all that you could change about this industry, your job, what would it be?
Radio has been kind of fighting with internet radio for a while, and I feel like the terrestrial radio, which is what we call radio that comes out through a tower into your car, terrestrial radio has been struggling to integrate into this internet-based world now. And I feel like there should be, and I would like for there to be more technology to make that transition a lot smoother. Mm-hmm. Because you get radio stations that have apps that you can listen in on, But the problem with that you run into with those is you get people who care about the local stuff who can just pick it up on the radio locally. The people who are out of town, they may not be interested so much into your local content, because if I listen to a station out of Houston, it might be a really interesting station, but I also don't care about the day-to-day happenings in Houston and which streets are busy and traffic and everything. So I wish that radio, there would be a more elegant solution, I guess, to the integration of terrestrial radio into internet radio.
Which do you think you prefer, radio broadcasting or television broadcasting?
Oh, radio broadcasting by a landslide. Because you have to be really formal on television. A lot of the time, you get people who, and I see these newscasters, and I think their job, honestly, is way harder than mine. Because you turn on Channel 10 or Channel 12, and you get, the local news. You're not going to see somebody that looks like me. You can let a lot more of your personality come out with radio broadcasting.
So, starting to wrap things up, how do you think your career directly correlates with the world of communication and the practice of communication?
For the first 3 hours of every single morning is just communicating with people. It's connecting with people. It's making that connection that they remember. And I mean, that is the first 3 hours of my day only. People need human interaction. And if I'm the only human interaction they have, or if I'm the only time they get to laugh that day, maybe they're having a hard day and I tell a really funny story on the air and that's the only time they get a laugh, then I think that is extremely important. Literally just communicating with people first thing in the morning, and I love that. And they're hand in hand.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today, Kristi. Catch on 99.7 The Buzz, Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, you bet.
Here. Awesome.